Good evening, everyone. I'm Joanne Ryan. Welcome to the Committee on Finance regular meeting. This is Wednesday, May 26th, and it is 5:37. Madam Clerk, would you kindly read the roll?
Chairwoman Ryan?
Present.
Councilman Narducci is absent. Councilwoman Castillo?
Present.
Councilwoman Anthony?
Present.
Councilman Taylor?
Here.
We have 4 present, 1 absent. We have a quorum.
Great. Let the record reflect that we have our pro tem, Pedro Espinal, with us. I can't see any other. We have Adrienne Southgate, our solicitor, with us this evening. Our wonderful clerks, Tina Mastriani and Donna Pelagian. I think that's it. Okay. What we're going to do tonight is we're going to start with the Department of Inspections and Standards. And I think what we're going to do is swear everyone from that department in at the beginning. So anyone who is going to testify, I'm going to ask the clerk to swear you in. After she swears you in, if you could identify your name for the record, please.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear under penalty of perjury that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
Yes.
I do.
Name and title for the record, please.
Sarah
Joseph
Silveria,
H.U.
Finance. Crystal Lindberg, Deputy Finance Director.
Thank you, Crystal. Anyone else?
Joseph H.U., DIS Director.
Kevin Mahoney, Deputy Director, Inspection Standards.
Good to see you, Kevin.
Good to see you, Councilwoman.
Okay, folks, Madam Finance Director, would you like to start just walking us through? Before we do that, I'm going to ask that we enter, this is an exhibit. What exhibit are we
We are
on?
on 12.
Okay, may I have a motion before we begin to enter the packet prepared by the Finance Department with a summary of revenues, expenditures, and salaries for the department, a annual operations report, an org chart, and a 3-box report identifying that as Exhibit 12. May I have that motion?
Taking a motion. Second.
Motion made by Councilwoman Castillo, seconded by Councilwoman Anthony. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion passes. Okay. Madam Director, please take it away.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Tonight, our first department that will be speaking and presenting is the Department of Inspections and Standards. There's a few different divisions in this department, so I'm going to go through all of the divisions at once, if that's okay, and then we can turn it over to the directors for questions.
That's perfectly fine. Thank you.
Thank you. The Division of Inspections and Standard Administration revenue is budgeted at $9,134,076. This is an increase of $1,919,487 over the 21 budget. And this number is based on known projects and development in the city in accordance with accelerated project timelines observed by the department. Zoning Board of Review revenues is budgeted at $36,000, a decrease of $1,200 from the 21 budget, and this revenue is decreasing due to a zoning conformity trend that has been observed across projects. Building Board of Review revenue is budgeted at $7,040, a decrease of $640 from the 21 budget, and this decrease is due to a building conformity trend that has been observed across projects. Moving on to expenditures, salaries for all inspections and standards divisions have increased due to savings from work share that are no longer available, and a 3% increase for 1033 and non-union. Additionally, The department has requested an increase in the salary for the secretary to the Board of Review by $5,037. This is a grade increase from an A18 to an A20. Inspections and standards administration salaries budgeted at $684,503, an increase of $106,514. Structures and zoning salaries are budgeted at $989,393, an increase of $101,592. Plumbing and mechanical salaries are budgeted at $273,708, which is an increase of $30,142. Electrical salaries are budgeted at $182,349, an increase of $20,079. And the zoning board and building board are budgeted consistent with the prior year, $18,450 and $13,000 respectively. Moving on to the benefits, the inspections and standard administration benefits budget total is $517,918, an increase of $41,302. Structures and zoning benefits is budgeted at $838,390, which is an increase of $42,744. Plumbing and mechanical benefits are budgeted at $223,507, an increase of $24,465. Electrical benefits are budgeted at $118,276, an increase of $8,396. And the zoning board and building board of review are the only benefits in those departments are FICA related, and they are budgeted consistent with last year, $1,416 and $1,020 respectively. Moving on to other expenses. All operating expenses for this department are budgeted under the administration division. All other divisions are just salary related. So services have been budgeted at $650. I think I might have a typo here. That's $652,387, a decrease of $92,000 from the 21 budget. And this change is partially due to an increase in advertising and marketing and contractual rent expense, and an offset in the reduction in training. And additionally, the private contractor line has been reduced by $105,000 for eligible revolving fund expenses. Supplies for fiscal 22 are budgeted at zero, and costs associated with supplies in 21 have been moved into printing in 22, which is up in the services line item. And capital, there's no capital budget for this department. And I'll pause here and turn it over to Director Achu and Deputy Director Mahoney for any questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, Director Achu, can you please tell us, talk about your department, what's going on? We like to see that your revenues are up. That's very good. How many vacant positions do you have? How many new positions do you have? And I just kind of want to understand what's going on in your department, what your challenges are, and then we'll have some specific questions about the budgeted items. But why don't you lead us off? I'm looking at the org chart. I don't know if you want to walk us through any vacant and new positions that you have in your department.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. So looking at this, we have 5 positions that we posted that just came out this week. So we're looking to fill 5 positions immediately. We have 7 positions total that we need to fill. One of them being the senior claims reviewer that hasn't been filled yet. We're holding on that. And then we also have the building official that actually just got filled last week. So we have a new building official for the city, Matthew Marcotte. Right now, things are working out very well, so we're pleased to have him on board, and it completes our management team over there right now. So we have, again, the 5 vacancies that we have posted and that we're trying to fill. Some of the areas that we're trying to capitalize on by filling these new vacant spots increase in code enforcement, having more inspections done, and making sure that we can capitalize on bringing conformity to some of the neighborhoods where there are known violations on a regular basis. Some of the other things that we're trying to make sure that we get taken care of is plan review timeline, increasing that so people get serviced quickly and we get the plans out and reviewed quickly. We're also focusing on making sure that we get overall compliance throughout the city and zoning. That's some of the new things that we have implemented just recently, requiring additional documentation for overall, things are going fairly well. The pandemic was challenging to get through, yet we made it through, and things are looking bright for the future of the city. So that's a good thing. Construction look very good right now. So we have high hopes that things are going to continue to do well, and contractors are going to continue to get work, and everything will just keep moving along well.
Great. Can you talk about the balance? The balance in the revolving fund I see is like $1.1 million. And I noticed that the budget is, there's a reduction in the budget this year. Can you talk about that? Why is that happening? Who administers the revolving fund for you?
So I'm actually going to hand that over to Kevin Mahoney, the Deputy Director. He deals with distributing the funds for that.
So Kevin, you administer those funds? You keep your eye on it?
Yes, Madam Chair, yep.
And can I just ask you a question before you tell us more about it?
Sure.
Funds be used for city buildings, to board city buildings?
I've never used the funds to board a city building.
So talk about the program then, if you could.
So we feel that we're able to use those funds which come from fines, which have been, and the fines, by the way, probably 95 or a little higher % of it are not from constituents. They might be from banks. They might be out-of-state LLCs. Those fines fines collected have dramatically reduced in the last year for two reasons. One, because of more compliance and people knowing what's happening, but also because of the situation with everything that's going on. It's been difficult for a lot of people to be able to fix what they needed to fix. So we've certainly been very lenient on imposing fines on people, but that money put into that revolving account, which can be used for boarding and can be used for demo if necessary. And hopefully, as we tried a couple of years ago, and as we continue to try, it would be really nice to be able to use that money for constituents in the city who need to do work on their homes in an owner-occupied home, say with zero interest, 5-year forgivable, something like that. We're making appeals to the state to broaden the use of that revolving fund money so that we might be able to help people that are having a difficult time helping themselves. Some people that might not be eligible for a loan because either they don't have the income to substantiate the request, or because the credit isn't any good. And really, that I'd love to see that fund used for people who qualify under both those examples. But that's how we're using the fund. Any money that's collected in fines goes into that revolving fund. And if someone has a problem, if a tenant, for instance, has a problem, a landlord is not stepping up, or a landlord has disappeared, or whatever the case would be, we would go out and try to hire someone to bring them in to do that work.
So talk about bank-owned properties. How do you get involved in boarding and securing a bank-owned property? How would you do that? Does that come out of the revolving fund?
So
how do you fund that exercise?
So my comment mostly when I said bank-owned was as far as looking at fines and how much we would fine someone. But because we, in the last number of years, not only issue a violation against the homeowner, but we issue it against the mortgagee. So we do a title search on everybody we issue a violation against. So they're on notice that they're in violation. They're on notice that their responsibility is the same as the homeowner. And so most of the time there's some level of communication. You know, you're very familiar, Madam Chair, with how that industry works. And I would say that a high percentage of the time I get their complete attention when it comes time for them to try to move a property that has a violation on it. And so that the potential buyer does a title search and is concerned, obviously, that the city has a lien on that property. But we don't be unusual for us to it's happened that would board something or demo something that's bank owned, and obviously a lien immediately gets put on that property. So nothing's going to happen until we're paid back on it.
Okay. All right. Training, why is your training down, the 52,700? Or perhaps that's a question for Mr. Director Achu. What's going on there?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the training was down pretty much because of the pandemic. We weren't able to get any training whatsoever. Everything that we did have or had available to us were all in-person seminars and things of that nature that all got canceled. So a lot of that is still coming back as of right now, and we may be having some webinars that might come up. But right now, this year is uncertain as far as what's going to come back and what's going to move to a remote platform.
Okay. What about miscellaneous expenses? Miscellaneous expense 53,500. It's consistent. It matches 2021, but it's higher than it historically was. So why is that? Why is that up?
One moment, please. I can find it. Miscellaneous expenses.
Yeah. 53,500.
Yeah, 53,500. Okay, yeah, sure. I'm sorry. So it's actually the same going across. We had 15,000 budgeted for 21, and the same because we didn't utilize as much in 22.
The year-to-date 2,800. My point is that historically it's been less than that. I'm just wondering why you're at 15,000 when your year-to-date is only 2,800.
That again goes back to the pandemic and what we were able to utilize that expense for and what we haven't been able to utilize that expense for.
Okay. Just seems a little inflated, that's all. Okay. Madam Auditor, do you have any questions?
I do not, thank you.
Councilman Taylor, I think has, Councilman Taylor and Councilwoman Anthony. I didn't see whose hand was up first. I'll just go with Councilman Taylor.
Yes, I got a quick question on your structure zoning where it says almost 2 million. Does that include, obviously it's up, but when we had the fire department in, they were saying that their plan reviews are down 500,000. So is plan review hooked into the structural zoning?
They don't coincide with each other, so one doesn't dictate the other.
Okay, so if yours is up, theirs can be down.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
No new positions, just vacant, right? Councilwoman Anthony, I'm so sorry.
No worries. I was just wondering where the revolving fund is mentioned in the budget.
So that fund's not part of the general fund. It's a side fund of the city. It's specific just for those housing violations. Yeah, it's not part of the general fund budget itself, but some of those expenses can be paid out of that side fund.
Okay.
If I can just follow up with that, Councilman Anthony, that is a state law that the funds go in there, and I believe it was Kevin Mahoney who cleared that all up. that correct, Kevin?
Correct.
Okay, all right. And then there's an accounting of it where, is there an accounting of it?
Yes, it's all accounted for in Fund 620, and we're happy to provide that to your internal auditor.
I can run that report.
We have that information, thank you.
Thank you. The other question I have for the director is, I see all the vacancies that you have in the inspection department, the housing inspection department. How are you keeping up with your volume right now?
It's been difficult. I'm not gonna candy coat it. It has been difficult. Some of the individuals that we lost out of that department moved on to other positions, and haven't come back from COVID. So they moved on and asked for extended leave and so forth, and just have decided not to come back to the department. So we were left with only 2 individuals in that section doing the inspection, which has been very difficult. Fortunately, the 3 positions that we're looking to fill, building 1 and with the building 1 apprentice, we have 2 of those. Those are all going to go to the code enforcement section of the department.
Okay, all right. And then the other question I had, one more question. I know that it's been, it was part of a city council resolution. I'm just wondering who receives notification for demolitions, building demolitions.
So the notice, you mean if the buildings are going down, like
Yes.
coming down?
Yes,
So if the city is taking down a building, then we of course notify people that the city is taking down the building. If a building is coming down for another reason, like somebody owns a property and they just want to take the building down, build something completely different, there's no notification required for that. And then the other thing is if there is a requirement for a building to come down, but it has to go through either historic approval or downtown district approval, anything like that, then during those hearings, the abutters are notified and that goes out. But if somebody has a private property and they choose that they want to demo the building and build something different, they're more than welcome to do that. That's their private property.
okay. I'm sure that you're aware that the Duck and Bunny over on Wickenden, that demolition happened very quickly without any notice. So I'm just wanted to figure out where, whether, anyone needs to be noticed. And I think that was privately owned. So, so they did what they did. All right. Well, thank you very much for that information.
If I just add to, as far as notices, we send out a letter to the homeowner and the mortgagee, telling them that they have to make safe through demo or whatever means on any property that we're considering demo. And we give them a period of time to respond to that before we take any action.
Thank you.
And thank you, Councilwoman Anthony. Obviously, you folks monitor a building that is being taken down to make sure they're in conformance and compliance with all safety measures, to make sure that the sidewalk is passable and that the construction is properly fenced. Is that within your purview?
Yes, it is. We own, as far as what we investigate or what we inspect, when we issue a building permit for a raised building permit to take a building down to its foundation or to remove it altogether, including foundation, there are safety protocols that need to be put in place. There are requirements that need to be done as far as requiring disconnects of gas and electric and water, sewer caps, all that has to take place. We make sure that buildings come down, that they have to be fenced in around these, and after it comes down, if there's anything left over there, they need to be fenced and secured, that property. So we definitely check on all of that.
So, Director, in my ward, I had a pool removed. It was a lot that solely had a swimming pool, in-ground swimming pool. It was gunite, and from what I understand, they're very difficult to remove. It was weeks and weeks of loud pounding with a big earth mover that was on that lot. Lots of calls from neighbors, but quite honestly, right now, it's left with a big hole. It's not boarded and it's not secured. There's no appropriate fencing. The sidewalk is, there's a piece of stockade fence that's on the sidewalk. So, was that permitted, that action? Did it need to be permitted to remove that pool?
So a pool does not need to be demolished. I mean, it doesn't require a permit to demo a pool. It does take a permit to erect a pool or to put one in. But when it comes to the demolition, it doesn't require it because it's not considered a structure. The only reason why it needs to be permitted is because it's only 24 inches. Anything over 24 inches deep requires that it's a pool.
Okay, well, we need to secure that property so that, I mean, it's not safe right now for people that are just walking by the neighborhood, and it's certainly an attractive nuisance for youngsters. The pool is not completely covered or level to the ground, so I'm just, if it's not permitted, if it wasn't permitted, the action was taken and it presents an attractive nuisance. So I'd like someone to, I'll make sure my office connects with yours. All right, I don't have any more questions. Anyone else? Oh, Councilman Goncalves is here. Councilman.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I just want to thank Mr. Achu and Mr. Mahoney for their communication since the demolition of that property on Wickenden that Councilwoman Anthony had referred to. Obviously, that caused some consternation in the neighborhood, especially considering the site, but I certainly look forward to working with Mr. Achu and Mr. Mahoney to think about how we can strengthen notice requirements in a proactive way that's helpful to the constituents. But I do want to thank them for their communication since. So just wanted to state that for the record. Thank you, Councilwoman.
Anybody else? Going once? Okay. I think we're all set with that department. Thank you very much for all you do. Appreciate your testimony today. Okay, next up we have Office of Economic Opportunity. Let's take them next. I have the same financial package presented. It's the finance summary. It's an annual operations report provided by the department. There's an org chart. There's a 3-bar report. I'd like to ask for a motion to make this Exhibit 13.
Second motion.
Motion made by Councilwoman Castillo, seconded by Councilman Anthony. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Okay. Director Silverio, take it away.
Next up, we have the Office of Economic Opportunity, and I'm joined here today by Jillian Fain, who's the Director of Education and Opportunity, and Kadeem Leslie, the Deputy.
I'm sorry, we forgot the swearing in. We're swearing in each department. I apologize. Sorry for the interruption. Madam Clerk, would you kindly swear in everyone who will testify this evening on this matter?
Certainly. Please raise your right hand. You swear under penalty of perjury that the testimony that you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Please state your names and titles for the record.
My name is Jillian Fain, Director of Education and Opportunity.
My name is Kadeem Leslie, Deputy Director of the Office of Economic Opportunity.
Okay.
Edit? Okay.
Okay. So, Office of Economic Opportunity. There is no revenue in this department. Total salaries for fiscal 22 are budgeted at $481,608, which is an increase of $86,418. This increase is due to the elimination of work share savings and the 3% for 1033 and non-union. Total benefits for fiscal year 22 are budgeted at $221,327, an increase of $35,700. Total services for fiscal 22 are budgeted at $1,220,000, and this is consistent with the 21 budget. Total supplies in fiscal 22 are budgeted at $1,000. This is an increase of $1,000 from the 21 budget, and this has increased due to a request from the office to buy office supplies. And there's no capital in this department, and I'm happy to turn it over to Director Fain and Deputy Director Leslie.
Director Fain, please tell us about your department.
Good evening, Chairwoman and everyone. So I recently have taken over in the Office of Economic Opportunity, so I'm fairly new to the department, so bear with me if there's some things that I miss here. Our department this year is seeing a lot of consistent changes with the past in increasing things such as our MBE, WBE programs. We're working on the tax stabilization. One of our biggest programs is our One Providence for Summer Youth programs, and that is our summer jobs for youth in the city. Something that we're increasing this year that we started last year is our Learn to Earn program. And this is a program for youth where we don't have them have to make a decision between doing summer school or taking a job. This is a program where they can actually do some work for their school and their classes, get some experience, and we actually pay them for that experience. We additionally have that we're working with in entrepreneurship. We have just hired a new small business coordinator, and that person is going to be working a lot with the local businesses. He is bilingual, so we're really excited to get some of those businesses in and working with us and some of the loans. And if I missed anything specific, if it's okay, I'll hand it over to Deputy Director Dean Leslie.
Do you have any vacant positions in your charge?
We do not have any vacant positions right now.
Okay, there's no new positions? They're all filled? Okay.
They are all filled.
All right. And I just noticed that your salary is actually funded out of the mayor's budget, correct?
That is correct.
Do you report to the mayor?
I do. I report to the Chief of Policy, Diana Perdomo.
Okay. Okay. You asked for office supply. You mentioned office supplies. Where are you physically located?
Our office is at 444. So we're on the 3rd floor in Westminster Street.
Okay. All right. Let's hear from your deputies. Who would like to go next?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for that introduction, Jillian. So my name is Kadeem Leslie, Deputy Director of Economic Opportunity. So glad to speak with you all today on the Finance Committee. Actually, my first time appearing in front of the Finance Committee, so I do appreciate all of you taking the time out to have us today. So I did just want to talk a little bit about just the One Providence for Youth Summer Jobs Program. So this program currently, we have put forward 8 organizations for this program that will be funded at a total not to exceed $438,642.52. So that award letter was actually put forward for this past Monday, May 24th. So that was approved. So we are going forward with the program. So the programs will last for about 6 weeks and will take place between July 12th and August 27th. So the applications are actually very exciting, actually scheduled to be open next week on June 1st. So that's something that we can definitely all look forward to. So vendors, or as we call them, like providers, will have to attend provider meetings each month. So that's something that we just take them through to make sure that we're troubleshooting any issues that they may have, addressing any barriers to employment that any of the youth have, and really making sure that.
So excuse me, I could just interrupt. So you go out to businesses, you're referring to them as vendors, and they're agreeing to employ our young people for a period of time. Is that correct? Through the summer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Who are the folks that you engage? Who are the vendors in this program? You referred to them as vendors. Who are they?
Yes. So the vendors that are currently in the program, the 8 awarded vendors that have been put forward are Billy Taylor House, Rhode Island for Community and Justice, AS 220, Boys and Girls Club of Providence, Goodwill of Southern New England. That's Goodwill Industries of Southern New England, sorry. Inspiring Minds, and Providence Housing Authority, and also Fab Newport. So we also did send this out to a list of just about like 130 organizations. That was like nonprofit organizations, educational institutions, for-profit businesses, et cetera, to really cast a wide net for just recruitment for like vendors or providers for this program.
Okay, are all these vendors, as you're referring to them, are they all nonprofits?
So all the ones that have been awarded are all nonprofits. That's correct.
Okay, and so you're paying them to take these students on or these young people on, correct? To get work experience?
Yes, so in effect, we are paying them. So how the funding breaks down, all of the providers do submit budgets to us. The budgets include any expenses or operational expenses for the program. This could be like any Chromebooks, any laptops, anything that the youth need to just complete the program successfully. So any of that sort of things, hotspots, things of that nature to make sure that kids are able to get through. Also, any staff wages for any programmatic staff that are overseeing the youth and interfacing directly with the youth.
Do you get paid? Is there any payment to the youth?
So the youth do get paid. There are youth wages that are included in each program.
At what rate are they being paid?
So they're being paid at the current minimum wage, which is $11.50 per hour.
They're not getting paid $15 an hour?
So the youth are not getting paid $15 per hour at the time. I believe Jillian can also chime in here. I think there's also just an initiative to speak to the providers and have that be updated to $15 an hour. But currently the budgets are in place for $11.50.
So Kadeem is correct. We did speak to the providers when the mayor made the announcement about the $15 per hour. So we are asking them to revise their budgets. They were passed through prior to that. So if there are revisions to the budget, we will submit all of the paperwork to all of you so that you can see the revised budgets as well.
Okay. All right, and about how many students? I don't know if you testified to that at this point. I've got 8 vendors, but I'm not sure of the number of students or the youth that are involved in this program. How many are served or provided employment opportunity?
So currently it would be 185 youth that will be served.
And how are they selected?
So the youth will, as far as selection, they will all be submitting just an application. From there, after they submit their formal application, they will just be like just screened, oriented by the providers. So providers will be given access to the application website where they will then go on to recruit their youth, interview them, make sure that they're ready for the program, et cetera, et cetera.
Is the application different from the summer employment application that is distributed through the city to everyone, all youth to apply to, or is it separate and apply?
It will be a slightly separate application. It will be hosted on the same youth website, but we are just making some changes to the application that are consistent with our previous programming. So it will just be hosted on the same website.
Okay, so our young people have an opportunity to select which summer program they want to seek employment and direct their application accordingly. Is that correct? So everybody has the opportunity to participate in this if they so choose. Is that correct?
So everybody who is 14 to 24, that is a Providence resident, has the opportunity to go through and select any of the opportunities that they see fit for them. So they will have an opportunity to go job description by job description, see what fits for them, and apply to each job they believe is a really good fit for them.
I asked you this before. You said that they were all non-profits. That's correct. Every single one of the 8 are non-profit. Okay.
That's correct.
All right. Wonderful. Who else is here to testify?
So, so Madam Chair, I could just say one other thing.
Yes, please do.
I've also developed a similar spreadsheet to what was requested by the internal auditor last year. So I can also send that to you all and send it to the clerk tomorrow.
You have what you need? Okay, thank you. All right, who else? There's First Source program. Is there someone here that can talk about that? First Source monitoring, MBE, WBE, who's going to talk about that?
So we can both talk about that as well. We do have someone, Jess Brito, who does oversee our First Source programming. This year, I think that we are, and Kadeem, correct me if I'm wrong, we're slightly behind on tracking on some of the First Source, but we work with many providers like IGT, Family Service of Rhode Island, some early learning centers, the Women, Infant, and Children's Program, and Building Futures. So we are consistently working with them for their quarterly reports, and we have weekly check-ins as a team on where we're at with those. I know that we are slightly behind on reporting. However, I would say we're about 90% of the way there with everyone that we need up to this point. And that would just be them giving us the demographics, submitting their budgets, their paperwork. So it's, Kadeem, I don't know if you have to jump in on anything separate with, with First.
So just on First Source and just the quarterly report. So I do just want to chime in that we have submitted the most previous report as per ordinance to the website and also sent that to the council. So that is something that we are up to date with as far as just keeping up with the quarterly reports. I just wanted to chime in with that as well.
Thank you. There's no finance person in your department, but you're managing some grants and responsible for compliance.
So,
who manages the finances in your department?
So I can speak a little bit to that. So that was previously managed by Lori DeRosa, who was in Workforce Solutions. So currently, because the department's separated, the finances in our department is actually handled by the planning department.
Okay. What about MBE, WBE compliance and monitoring? Who's doing that? Who's responsible for that?
So Representative Grace Diaz is responsible for that. She is actually out of the office this week. I can give you just a broad overview of what we're doing with that. We do meet weekly with, or I should say bi-weekly with the team to go over that compliance. And we frequently get some requests for different things that we are asked of from different providers. So she handles all of those requests. But I'm happy to follow up with you if there's anything specific that you guys needed for that.
Have we met our MBE, WBE goals and objectives?
As of this year, we have met our MBE, WBE goals. The audit that we just completed a 12-month audit on that. And I'm sure that I don't want to be specific to the number, but I know that after the audit, and again, I've only been in one of the meetings, that we did come up with the best practices after that meeting to follow what came out of the audit. So I'm happy to share that audit with your office as well.
Who did the audit? Who completed the audit?
It looks like it was the city's own procurement process. I'm actually not sure. I'll have to find out for you who completed that audit.
Okay. All right. Any questions, council, committee members, council members? Madam Auditor, do you have any questions?
Yes, I have a couple of
Please.
questions. You mentioned computers for the program, for this summer learning program. Do all of the computers come back to the city?
Okay, so that's a very good question. I think that's definitely a very time-appropriate question. We've been just sort of thinking about this with our with planning, who processes like our invoices. So I think that's one of the things that we might want to just consider changing about the program. So in past years, the providers usually got to keep the laptops. So I'm not sure like exactly what we want to do. I think we want to change that. But that's what it was for past years. So I will say also that the contracts are not signed, sealed, and delivered yet for the program. So if that's a recommendation, then we can definitely go forward with that recommendation.
Was that part of the application process that they were gonna get a laptop
No.
with their employment? There
So
was
that
just
was
no
not-
oversight?
So that was not a part of the RFP process for the bidders?
The program in general, did it include, when the program was designed, was it the intention of the program to also provide to the youth a laptop?
Yeah, so as far as the program is concerned, so it was the intention, just because we left it open to the providers to either do like in-person programming, a hybrid model, which is like half in person, half on Zoom, and then also Zoom. So just making sure that all the youth are able to like complete the programming online. We do just leave it open for like technology expenses for the laptops. Now we are also
Is the laptop expense contemplated in the budget that you have, the 400 and whatever that number was? Do you have
Yes.
laptops budgeted into that amount, that account? Okay.
So it is budgeted. What I would say is that some organizations do have laptops budgeted, some do not.
I'm sorry, I jumped in on you, Madam Auditor.
No, that's okay.
Thank
So
you.
just for clarification, if it's in the budget, the city pays for the laptop, the vendor lets use it, and then the vendor kept it. So this is the third year doing this program, so we've done this 3 years in a row. We've just given our laptops away. That is city property, just for the record, that is city property. I recommend that you get whatever you can back, just my recommendation. So
Madam
that's,
Moderator, I don't know
you're
if
working on.
this might be helpful as well. Majority of these programs are on loan from the Providence Public School Department. They should be providing the laptops. So and we will definitely check how many are actually out there, but most programs last summer, the school department did loan the laptops, and then the school department takes them back at the end of the summer. So they usually have them until May or June.
Okay. All right. Another question. You have a temporary line item of $95,000 approximately. I knew what it was for the past, vendors that could not do their own payroll. Are you still having that issue, and can't you make it part of the specifications that they do their own payroll? I just find it very alarming that we technically are responsible for these employees who are not actually working for the city, unless there is some agreement made. Sarah, if you can help me, is there an agreement that if anything were to happen to the employee, that the city is not responsible?
So, the director might have more information.
So I can definitely chime in on that. So as a part of the RFP process, all of the organizations that do submit proposals for programming, they are required to have like insurance that would be able to cover all of the youth staff that would be a part of their program.
But can they process their payroll so that the city doesn't have to on their behalf?
So they also need to be able to have the financial capacity to run the program on a reimbursement basis. So usually how the program works is after the first week youth go through 20 hours of work readiness training, and that's considered the first benchmark. After that benchmark, providers are then able to, after they've like gone and paid like the youth wages for that week, they can then submit one invoice to us. So at the end of the program, they then do a program completion invoice for the remaining dollars.
All right, one last question, Councilman Anthony, if that's okay, on the same.
Don't worry.
subject.
Go right ahead, take your time.
So do we not need the 94.5 in temporary line item?
So I might have a little bit of information then, correct me if I'm wrong. Is this money for interns that work in city departments or on city programs? Is there an amount allocated in the temporary lines for that?
So the temporary line item was attributed to like the city department interns that worked within the city departments. So last year, the reason why that line item wasn't used was because we went, of course, COVID-19, the pandemic hit us all, and we had to go virtual. And at that point, when we went into workshare, we were told we can no longer have temporary staff on the payroll. So we then had to release everyone that was working at that point, and then no longer hire any city department interns.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. If I can just jump in, Councilwoman Anthony, on this computer question, laptops, you talked about the youth that would be participating in this program, and you stated 14 to 24. Obviously, the upper end of that range are not students in the Providence school system and have laptops provided by the school system. So what's the story with those laptops?
So last summer, we did have the school system did offer through their Pathways office for students to borrow the laptops. I can be honest with you, I don't know how many students actually took advantage of that. And that would be up to the age 24 working with just their specific Pathways department. So anyone who's in their program with the department anyway. But I'm not sure the number of students that took advantage of that were outside of enrollment of the K-12 programs through PPSD.
Okay, so generally speaking, you believe all of the laptops that are utilized through this program are borrowed computers, correct?
That's my understanding.
And who manages them to make sure they get back to the owner? Who's doing that?
So for the school department, they are the ones that would have to reach back out to the students to receive them back. And again,
Okay.
I'm not sure how many took advantage of that.
And what about security for these computers? They're taking a computer, they're going into a business environment. How are we managing the security? Is there a contract? Is there an agreement with the vendor that you've identified, those 8 vendors? How do they deal with that?
So, so I just wanted to chime in really quickly, if it's okay. So prior to this year, we haven't been managing directly the oversight of laptops for the One Providence Review program. That's been directly something that directly managed by the vendors. So what they would do is they would purchase the laptops and then submit an invoice to us that included the receipt of that purchase. But we didn't manage directly who's taking the laptop out and the return of the laptop. But based on the recommendation of the internal auditor, that's definitely something that we will begin to do.
Okay, enough on that. Councilwoman Anthony, you've been very patient and I apologize.
No worries. Thank you very much. My question is about the First Source and MBE, WBE. So it sounds to me like you are focusing most of your efforts on compliance, which is definitely needed. My question is, who is developing and maintaining the list of unemployed residents, and who are doing the lists on First Source, and how are those being developed? And also with regard to the WBE, MBE, I know that they have to be, participants have to be certified by the state, but is there an active outreach going on to help some of these businesses get certified so that they can be on the list? Because I'm very concerned about the maintenance of the list and actually some proactive, getting out there to make sure the lists are as robust as they can be.
So I can begin, Councilwoman Anthony. As far as the MBE, WBE, Representative Grace Diaz does oversee all of that work. And as I mentioned before, we do have regular check-ins with the working group. And we have other departments in the city that we work with as well. One of the big vacancies that we had was the small business coordinator, and that person's going to be working very closely with Grace and the businesses in the surrounding area to do exactly what you just said. Check the list that we have, look through it and see who's on there, who needs to be updated, and also adding people to that list. It was really important for us to find somebody who's bilingual to start going around to the minority-owned businesses as well as the women businesses. So our hope is that in this future, with our new person coming on to do this, that we'll really get a good handle on the list, develop the list to be further used, and to also reach out to everyone we already have on it. It is my understanding, however, that there is a maintained list, and I'm happy to share the most up-to-date maintained list with this group.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And at some point, it would be great to have a report on that, on your progress on those particular issues, because in addition to the compliance, which is very much an issue for us, especially with regard to the TSAs, but I am concerned that some of these businesses are being overlooked. So that would be great. Thank you.
Councilwoman Anthony, we're always of like mind, you and I. I was just talking with the auditor, and we think that it would be appropriate and fitting if we asked for a report from the director on MBE, WBE program compliance, and that should go to the full council. So we would like a formal report, and that basically affirms the questions that Councilwoman Anthony was just asking.
Chair, can we also get one on First Source, or would that be appropriate?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Great.
The auditor has another question.
I just wanted to follow up. They have submitted their quarterly First Source report to the council. Kadeem, was that for the March 31st period? So that is there. It's in the system.
Okay.
But we can get it.
Okay.
I'd like to dive into their process, not just receive a report, which we appreciate, which is required, but more a deep dive into what's going on.
Okay. Well, we'll get the report and then we'll do a deep dive. How's that?
Thank you.
We'll look at it further. Okay, Councilman Espinal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a brief question. I think it's a wonderful program. It keeps the youth employed and doing the right thing. I wish we could have more. So my question is, what was the total number of applicants?
So the total number of applicants was 8.
Are you asking about
you're
asking about the youth?
The youth, yes. I'm sorry. I should have been more specific. Yeah, you
That's
said
okay.
something. I believe it's about 185 that you hired. And my question was, what was the total number of applicants of the youths?
Oh, sorry. Sorry about that. I also misunderstood the question. So Councilman Espinal, so the program application will actually open on June 1st. Tuesday, on this upcoming Tuesday. So there was just a little bit of confusion around the youth summer jobs. So the previous application that was open was directly for the youth jobs through Parks and Recreation. So those applications closed. I'm not clear on how many applicants applied to like those positions, but I can definitely share with you going forward just the applicants that come in the future for the One Providence for Youth program.
Right. It would be great to know that number, like I said, to see if perhaps in the future we could probably increase that number. And out of that, do you keep track as to how many of those that you employ are actually from 14 to 17 years of age, and how many from 18 to 24?
So we do keep track of that information. I can submit a more like formalized report. We have that information. I just don't have it readily available to me. I can tell you that the bulk of the applications that come in are from the 14 to 17 range, and then the lesser applications are from the 18 to 24 range.
So is there any particular requirements from your 18 to 24? Because it sounds like you're already out of school unless you're enrolled in post-secondary education. Is that a requirement?
The question is, there's a requirement regarding schooling?
Do they have to be enrolled in school for you to hire them?
No, they do not. Youth who are out of school can also be hired through this application.
So that's basically the pool of applicants from 18 to 24 years old.
That's correct. That's correct. And we do have an emphasis that we put out in the RFP every year, just for like youth who are out of school, youth with disabilities, or youth who are also English language learners.
So it's open to everyone. Thank you.
That's correct.
Well, thank you so much. Madam Chair.
You're
most-
welcome.
Thank you, Councilman. Madam Auditor has another question.
Sorry, just two more quick questions, I hope. One is, I know you went out to bid for the apprenticeship monitoring. Have you awarded that?
Yes, so we have awarded the apprenticeship utilization program, and that award letter went through on this past Monday, also with the PVD jobs award letter. So the organization that was awarded for that was Building Futures, and they were the sole bid.
Okay, and kind of a follow-up to that. Building Futures and the MBE monitoring in compliance with TSAs. When you speak of your TSA compliance, is that what you're speaking about in your mission and accomplishments?
So the TSA compliance listed in the accomplishments is referring to the quarterly reports.
Okay, I don't know if Jacinta Jones has come to my office and she's going to be the TSA compliance auditor. So I'm sure we'll be reaching out to you because we want to see compliance throughout the whole city, just not in that section. So it's good to know that, you know, we will want to sit with you to get all of that straightened out. So thank you ahead of time.
Be great, if I may, and we look forward to just sitting with you and looking over that.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Pro Tem Espinal, your hand's still up. Do you have more questions?
I
Or have-
do not, Madam.
Okay. All right, folks. Well, thank you very much for joining us this evening. We appreciate your testimony. That concludes that item. And the next one is, we are going to discuss Department of Planning and Urban Development. I have in my hand a copy of the Finance Department summary of that department. I've got, wow, a very large annual report. I've got an org chart and a 3-bar report. So let's call this Exhibit 14. May I have a motion to make this Exhibit 14? Motion made by?
Making a motion.
Motion made by Councilwoman Castillo, seconded by Councilwoman Anthony. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, Madam Clerk, could you kindly swear in the folks from the Planning Department that will be testifying today, and after they are sworn in, if they could kindly state their name for the record.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear under penalty of perjury that the testimony that you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, help you God?
I do.
Hi, Bonnie Nickerson, Director of the Department of Planning and Development.
Robert Azar, Deputy Director, Planning and Development.
Sally Brito, Director of Fiscal Operations, Department of Planning and Development.
Got it? Well, welcome. Director Silveria, would you kindly lead us through the financials?
Sure. Our last department tonight, Planning and Development, revenues, there's no revenues in this department. Salaries in fiscal '22 are budgeted at $1,138,519, which is an increase of $318,624. The increase is due to several organizational changes outlined in my report, and additionally, the salaries increased due to the elimination of work share and the 3% increase for 1033 non-union. I can run through these changes quickly with you. They want to defund an administrative assistant purchasing clerk at a grade 20 and replace that with a customer service associate at a grade 13. And that would result in general fund savings of $2,922. They'd like to increase the salary for the neighborhood liaison position from an A10 to an A12 due to additional responsibilities assigned to this position. That is a $4,190 increase. They would like to create a manager of an engagement programs position, and that is proposed at an A17, just 70,736, and an increase for the Director of Planning at the recommendation of the Salary Review Commission at a 1,112 cost. So total salary impact for all of those positions is $73,116. Employee benefits in fiscal 22 are $1,406,295, an increase of $153,970. Services in fiscal 22 are budgeted at $642,008. That's a decrease of $22,935, and that is a combination of things. The rent, contractual rent expense goes up, but there were some small cuts made to various line items in their services budget. And supplies in fiscal 22 are $7,000, a decrease of $3,300 from the 21 budget, and this decrease is due to a reduction in office supplies based on a historical spend within the department, and there's no capital budget in this department. I'm happy to turn it over to Director Nickerson and Deputy Director Azar.
Thank you. So, Director Nickerson, please tell us about your department. You've got a new position, Manager of Engagement Programs. I'd like to hear about that, and as well as your vacant positions. So why don't you start with your new position?
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the committee. If you'll permit me, I thought I might just go through a quick overview of the different divisions in the department and some highlights from the past year. If this is an appropriate time to do that.
I think we want to get right into the position, so we can start with that, and then we can talk about an overview if you'd like.
Sure. So we have currently 8 positions that are vacant, and as Sarah mentioned, we have 1 new proposed position in the budget before you. So the 8 positions that are vacant are mostly due to the fact that there was a hiring freeze for some time, and so folks left positions, and we weren't able to fill those positions. So those are the Associate Director of Community Development, a planner position, a planning tech position, a business research analyst, senior real estate officer, customer service representative, the communications director for the department, and a lead and healthy housing inspector. Those are our 8 vacancies. Many of them are currently out, and we're actively seeking applicants right now for many of those positions. And some are in the pipeline but haven't yet been posted.
Were they in the budget last year?
Yes. So the only new position is the one that we just mentioned, the Manager of Engagement Programs. That's a proposed new position for this year.
Okay. All right. On any non-contractual wage increases in your departments?
I will just flip that back over to Sarah, because I think you just went through those. Is that right?
Yes, there was just the one for the director, and that's based on the salary review board recommendation.
Okay. So there's an increase here for the salary, from the salary review board recommended for the director. And is that considered the stipend that the director is also receiving? That's separate and apart?
That's separate.
Okay, all right. And what is the stipend that the director receives?
It's for work on the board. Bonnie, do you want to take that?
What is the amount?
Sure.
What is the amount?
I believe it's 15,000.
15,000?
Yeah.
In addition to your salary? And what is that for?
So in addition to serving as the director of the Department of Planning and Development, I serve as the executive director of the Providence Redevelopment Agency. And so this stipend is for the work associated with that role.
You serve as the did you say the executive director?
Yes.
Is that what you just said? Okay. And the hours that you put in that role are what? How many hours do you serve in that role?
That's hard for me to quantify, but I would be happy to try to do that.
No, I just want to make sure that, I mean, you're serving in two different roles, and I just want to understand the hours that you're putting in. So how do you manage your time for both of those positions?
Well, I mean, frankly, as you know, this job is sort of a constant job. So I work above and beyond the sort of normal working hours. Specifically for the PRA, it's a monthly board meeting, and we have a lot of projects through our real estate division that are actually sort of PRA designated projects. So the work is, it's a very, very active role, and we have a very active board. So
how many hours do you serve in that capacity that you receive in the stipend for? You said there's a monthly meeting?
Yeah, so like I said, I can attempt to try to delineate that. I haven't done that, but I can try to do that if that's helpful.
I'd like you to do that for us, please, and provide that to the auditor. Thank you.
Okay, sure.
All right. Okay. Let's talk about the projects that you oversight. I know that you wanted to go into a summary of your department and you wanted to talk about your accomplishments. Why don't you lead us through your summary?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm not going to walk through the document. I just wanted to give folks just a quick overview of some of the main activities of the department. So as you can see on the org chart, a big part of the work of our department is reviewing projects citywide. So we provide staff to 9 different boards and commissions in the city, and also 4 state boards. We write the zoning ordinance, update the zoning ordinance very regularly. We also promulgate 9 regulations and then review projects in accordance with all of those regulations. We have a special projects division that has the city's GIS function, as well as data analysis. We do transportation planning, environmental planning, urban design, special area projects, and the comprehensive plan. We also have a housing and community development division that I know the council is quite familiar with, because the work of that division is often before the council through this time of year, through the sort of federal entitlement funds. We also have a real estate division that does a lot of work that's specific to PRA projects, but also real estate functions throughout the city. So for example, if someone is looking for space, a business is trying to relocate in Providence, for example, our real estate division works really actively with those sort of inquiries, as well as city departments that may need some guidance on space. For example, the Parks Department and others, we often are assisting other departments in that way. And then we have our fiscal team and sort of back office team that provides support for small business lending, as well as our administrative team. And so just kind of reviewing a couple of the main sort of projects that we've been working on most recently. We're heavily involved in the CIP and infrastructure projects citywide. So some highlights from our department include the Woonasquatucket River Greenway project, which will be under construction hopefully in late fall or early spring. Upper Broad Street, which is a CIP investment to coincide with the Barbara Jordan 2 redevelopment, which will be breaking ground in spring as well. The Kennedy Plaza project, many of you have heard much about that, and we'll talk about a little bit more about that. And the Charlotte Hope Plaza, which we completed in late fall of last year. We have been able to pivot during the pandemic to continue to provide excellent service to applicants and to our boards and commissions. The work, as I think you saw from reviewing DIS's numbers, has not slowed down. So a lot of the projects that were in our pipeline, continued through our review process. In fact, we had to add meetings, and our boards and commissions are, as you know, run by volunteers, and these groups spend a lot of time reviewing the work in our city, and we continue to sort of provide that service. We completed a comprehensive housing strategy and have launched the new funding mechanism and have started to award funds from the new Providence Housing Bond. We have engaged the public in a variety of really creative ways. Kennedy Plaza is one example, but we have launched a lot of online surveys. We've done interviews for the Kennedy Plaza project. We've had over 1,000 comments and continue to engage youth in workshops, all of this remotely. So it's been kind of an interesting year for public engagement. We implemented a brownfield assessment program for parcels along the Woonasquatucket River corridor. We've continued to advance the Great Streets, the urban trail network. We have developed an urban trail network branding and plan. We're going to be unveiling that soon. Highlights include Broad Street, which we are going to be in construction this summer, and South Water Street. We've advanced several major redevelopment projects. So Paragon Mill, we just had the groundbreaking last Friday, so many of you are probably familiar with that one. The Klitzer Mill, we are developing a new gateway at Roger Williams Park. We took an abandoned commercial property and have rethought that as a new welcome center to Roger Williams Park. We are just about to issue the construction award for that. Really excited about that. And then we have funded and executed contracts for over 120 projects and programs serving our community through the federal entitlement funds that I mentioned. And then in addition to that, we have deployed disaster relief grant funds to over 50 relief projects delivering critical pandemic response. So in addition to the sort of regular federal entitlement funds that we received this year, we had $7 million of additional supplemental funds specific to COVID relief. So there were a number of activities associated with that. So I'm happy to go into any of those in more detail, but that's part of the broad overview of what's going on in our department.
Thank you. Could you, I think I neglected, thanks for that summary, I appreciate that. I neglected to ask you to walk us through the description for the manager of engagement programs. That's that new position that you're asking us for or asking for. Tell us what that's all about, what you hope to accomplish with that position.
Yeah, we've heard a lot of feedback. As you can see from the summary, there's just a lot of work happening through the department. And there's a lot of ways that people really want to be engaged in that work. And so we're trying to come up with a lot of different ways to sort of grow sort of neighborhood leaders that can participate in our process. And one of the things that we've modeled this after is actually the city of Philadelphia has something called the Citizen Planning Institute that's run through their City Plan Commission. And it's actually a program they invite folks to participate in the program. And it's a way to really engage in the process and learn about all of the activities that we just talked about and sort of grow the next generation of leaders that could serve on our boards and commission, and sort of engaging with people of how to be more involved in these processes that can be sort of complicated. We've heard from folks that it can be a little opaque. We're trying to do a lot of different activities. We recently just started a coffee hour series on different topics just to invite people to participate in our work in a variety of ways. And so the Citizen Planning Institute would be one of the things that the manager of engagement programs would actually kind of launch and get up and running. We see this as a way to really attract people from every single neighborhood in Providence to engage with us and our process in a meaningful way. And again, kind of grow the capacity in each neighborhood to have that access to the work. So that's the intent with that position.
Thank you. That was a great explanation. I appreciate that. I don't see this position in your org chart. Am I just not, am I missing it? Where does it report up? Who does it report up to? Am I missing it?
It may be the org chart that you have is, it may be the existing org chart. It would be under the special projects work. So in that special projects, there's a neighborhood liaison position. So it would actually, it would be in that group. And
so this position would report, who would it report to? The Associate Director of Special Projects?
I think that would be appropriate, yep.
Okay, can we get a revised org chart if you're asking for that position, we want to see where it fits in? to the
Yeah.
scheme of things?
Yeah.
Councilman Anthony, you have your hand up. Do you have a question?
I just, two things. One, I wanted to say thank you very much for the new position. I'm very, very interested in more public engagement. I've mentioned that before, and I think that you and the associate director, Azar, have been very, very responsive, and I appreciate that. So I look forward to, I'm not sure if it's exactly, it sounds to me more of an education. I'm just looking for a little clarification, Director. Is it education or is it really trying to engage the community, or both?
So the reason we actually thought that it would be kind of leader of the Citizens Planning Institute, and then we realized that the position is actually more expansive than that. So it's sort of taking on that concept, but also just helping to innovate around engagement, like this idea of the sort of regular coffee hours. What are all the different ways that we can respond to folks saying that they want to engage with us in different ways? And how do we launch innovative and creative programs to have more access? And I think that, that's really what this person would kind of be charged with taking on. And so I think it would be great to have a collaborative approach with the council, because, we're hearing from many of you the types of information that folks want to have more information about. And so I see this as a partnership.
And then the other question I have for you, is it all right if I continue, Madam Chair?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You're on a roll. Go right ahead.
The other, your communications director, I'm sorry to see that is vacant, because I thought your communications director was good.
We agree. We were very sad.
But I guess I'm just looking for, in terms of communication, I'm just trying to, I know that there's a lot of maybe Facebook, social media that's happening. I'm just wondering if and I'm not sure it's reaching as many people as you could. For instance, I was sorry to see that there was very little attendance at the coffee hour that you did, which I thought was excellent. But so few people knew about it. So I'm just wondering if, when the new communication director comes in, that they will be trying to do a more robust outreach.
That's always the goal. And so, we launched different things to kind of test them out and see, did that time of day work? We'll host them at different times of day and, different topics and things, but certainly our goal, and something that keeps all of us up at night, is how can we be doing better, and how do we engage more people? How do we engage people that don't sort of traditionally engage in these topics? How do we broaden out that reach? So absolutely.
Okay, and finally, I just would like to say that I think you and the associate director, Azar, do a wonderful job for this city. I'm very appreciative of your work. I'm thrilled about the Winhascatucket corridor. I mean, it's just the work that you're doing is excellent. So thank you.
Thank you.
Go set, Councilwoman? Okay, I just want to go back to the budget items. I just had a couple of items that I had marked up, and if I could just, there's a stipend in here for $10,000. Who is that for? Is that for the director? Is that somebody else? Who is that?
That's for Sam Budwick, and he is the deputy director of PRA. His salary comes mainly out of the PRA, but he does do work, I believe, for the housing program for the city, and that's what that stipend is for.
Okay, so he's the deputy director, and Director Nickerson is the executive director. So there's two stipends being paid. Is that correct?
So
am I missing that?
Yeah, it's actually so Sam is general counsel and deputy director of the redevelopment agency. His salary is paid for out of the redevelopment agency. It's not a general fund salary. What the stipend is referring to is that he, as you know, used to work for the solicitor's office. And so there are still items that he works on that's outside of the PRA. So for city related items, for example, TSAs and some of the housing work, he gets a stipend from the general fund to work on non-PRA related items. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you. I just was confused with the stipend there. I appreciate the explanation. Okay, travel. I see it's consistent with what it was last year, but prior years it was much lower. So what are your plans for travel?
So, I mean, as you know, nobody went anywhere last year, but we try to offer professional development opportunities for our team. A lot of our team has accreditations and have to get certain number of credit hours per year to maintain those credentials. And so we are very cognizant of trying to provide professional development opportunities. Those are usually sort of regional conferences, some national conferences, but that's really what that line item is for.
Okay, I don't see a training budget. Is there a training professional development?
Sally, you'll remind me where I believe we have a professional development line item, or do we call it something else?
Well, a lot of that goes under dues and subscriptions, or usually the cost of a conference is all within the travel budget. So it's kind of combined between those two.
Okay.
So
does that, miscellaneous professional services, what's that?
Yeah, so that line item is to cover studies that we often have to do throughout a fiscal year. For example, environmental study or, environmental impact study, a lot of different studies that pop up often at the request of, a project that's happening or a project that we might be taking on that we can't foresee what those studies are going to be. And then you'll see in past years, sometimes we've utilized those line items and sometimes we haven't. One example from a few years ago was the 610 project. So the state, announced they were going to be working on 610, and we felt like we had to quickly bring somebody on board to help with the city side of that project. That was not something we anticipated. And so we realized we just needed a line item to cover those types of studies that sort of pop up during the year that we need to be responsive to.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that explanation. Can you talk or provide us with a status or an update on what's going on with the Every Home program?
Yeah, I'm happy to report that we recently just brought on a new director of real estate. So this position had been vacant for a little while, and Amanda DeGrace has come on board as the new real estate director, and she's fantastic. So we have really, during the pandemic, we all continued to work on vacant and abandoned property issues. The law department, DIS, planning, and PRA all together were working on it. But we had lost sort of that focal point of each of us as a team coming together every week, and Amanda has just restarted that. So we have a couple of exciting things that we're working on in relation to this. One is you all may recall us talking about a software data analysis system called Telemi. So we have—
Say that again, I'm sorry, what was the name of it?
It's called Telemi. And basically it's a parcel-based software system where a lot of information about all of the lots in the city is combined into this one service. And so that's something that we're using to help advance the work around Every Home. So we can—
Does it include title? Does it include ownership, title, registration, all that?
Yeah, any data that we have in the city that is linked to a particular parcel, including 311, including crime data, and we've been able to do link utility data. There's just an incredible amount of information. If it's linked to a parcel, then we can use the system called Telemi to track it. So we've been using that to really look at you'll remember that we had 600 properties that we successfully were able to revitalize through the Every Home.
I remember that.
Yeah, I think there was a party. And so we still have about 245 properties that we've identified through the Every Home program as vacant and abandoned. And so what we're doing is kind of prioritizing based on a number of factors. For example, proximity to schools, parks, rec centers. You know, really focusing on those properties that are on a corner, for example, where the blight has such a significant impact. So of the 248, we're trying to sort of get down to what's our top 20 list. And then what's the next group after that. We do have some funds through the CDBG. We have an allocation through CDBG to continue to work on this. We have, as you all know, deep relationships with all the CDCs. And so we work with a lot of CDCs on these properties because chances are if they're on our radar as problem properties, they're also on the radar of neighborhood groups, CDCs, and others. And so, you know, it's a combination of market forces and then sort of these legal issues. So some of the properties on this list, the 245 or so, are the ones where there's just very complex title issues. And so those aren't the ones that are going to get just sold on the open market, right? Because there's some sort of intervention that we need to take as a city. So, but
do they go into the receivership program? Are they candidates for the receivership program?
So the receivership program is one tool in our toolbox among others. Because it is a strong real estate market right now, some of these properties will be addressed just because an interested buyer steps forward and actually starts to do that renovation without there being any subsidy or you know, city activity. So that accounts for some of the activity. But I am happy to report that the Every Home group is now back together, and we have Amanda at the helm, and we're really grateful for that.
Of the 245 properties approximately that you referenced, are any of those bank owned? Or are they bank owned?
Some of them are, okay. Yeah, and we have the details on, we do have kind of the story behind each of them. And so, you know, I know Kevin mentioned this earlier, in some cases, it's the bank-owned properties where we're in housing court and we're, you know, trying to develop a settlement with those banks. So that definitely is a piece of that puzzle.
What can we do to move the banks on? I mean, we have a housing shortage, and there are houses that I see boarded up that have value to the community, and certainly, I mean, they're multifamily homes, many of them. So addressing a bank-owned boarded property, to me, should be a priority. So what are we doing? How do we get to those properties, and how do we get to, what's the best way of returning them to productive use?
Yeah. So we have really shifted some policies around that, and it's been much more aggressive about proactively going after these banks and actually reaching out in advance of housing court procedures to try to reach a settlement. And there, I would say that we've been very successful at moving a bunch of those properties and continue to do that. I don't want to speak for the solicitor's office about, you know, any particular techniques that they are using, but I can assure you that we're being very aggressive about that and seeing results. So we'll continue to chip away at that list, and I'm feeling very, very good about where we are.
Solicitor Southgate, how are you?
I'm so well, thank you, Madam Chairman.
It's a pleasure to have you with us this evening.
Well,
Always
thank
a
you
treat.
for including me. This is practically my swan song, so it's kind of nice to get a dry run before my department is up next week. But I'm afraid I can't enlighten you about the techniques that the law department is using, because all of that belongs in our housing court unit, which is currently being run by Sarah Pearson. I'm sure we'd be happy to give you book, chapter, and verse next Tuesday evening when we'll be before you.
Okay, could you please prepare your team to give us book, chapter, and verse on that topic? It just, to me, there's way too many properties that are boarded up and, you know, just sitting there. And that's low-hanging fruit to me.
Got it.
And we're in a market where, you know, people are dying to buy homes. I just can't imagine what the delay is. And I'm sure that our intelligent, creative minds in the city can figure a way around that. So that'll be job one. Thank you. And Solicitor Southgate, You have served the city well for many, many years. I have heard that you are retiring.
That is true. That is true.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. Well, not before you testify next week,
Correct.
right?
Yes, I will
Okay.
see you all on Tuesday night.
Okay, so I'm saving my goodbyes till then, but,
Excellent.
thank you for, helping with that answer. Director, could you talk about, so you spoke about every home. Can you talk about the Affordable Housing Trust, as you know that it's near and dear to my heart and the council as a body? Talk about that program, where you're at with it, and what's going on.
Yeah, I'm happy to. So as the council is very well aware, we just, in partnership with you all, passed the Providence Housing Trust bond, and that bond closed just a few months ago. So as you're aware, but I will just remind everybody that bond is supported through the annual allocation of 10% of the tax revenue that comes in from projects that receive a TSA. Those funds are segregated into a separate account, and that account has allowed us to seek and close on the Providence Housing Trust bond, which is a $24.5 million bond issue. And I think something we should all feel really proud of and excited about is it's really the city's kind of first dedicated stream of funding into affordable housing construction. It's really, really exciting. And I think the community is also very excited about it. So we had a Providence Housing Trust account with some dollars in it. And now we have basically recapitalized that account with the bond proceeds. And so we have two major projects that we have committed bond proceeds to. The first one is the Paragon Mill project, which again broke ground last Friday. That's 101 units of affordable and workforce housing. The affordable housing is capped at 60% AMI, and that's supported through a 9% low-income housing tax credit allocation. And the workforce units are basically they're self-capped. So the developer has sort of capped them at that workforce rate. So between 100% AMI and 120% AMI. We are allocating a $5 million allocation from the Providence Housing Trust to Paragon Mill. That's a $30 million project. Again, 101 units of affordable housing. And then the second project is the Barbara Jordan 2 project in the Upper Broad Street area. As you know, this is really a new neighborhood that's going to be built in this part of the city. The existing buildings will be demolished and 84 units of affordable housing will be constructed in that area. I think this is a really great example of a public-private partnership because that project actually just days ago officially was awarded the 9% low-income housing tax credit. So that's really exciting. They got that official award from Rhode Island Housing. And as I mentioned in the beginning of our conversation, we talked about the CIP project. In the city CIP, we allocated a $10 million allocation to rebuild the infrastructure in this entire part of the city. So for those of you familiar with this area, there are no sidewalks. The streets are in terrible condition. We're actually going to be basically rebuilding a neighborhood. So we have the allocation through the capital improvement program. And as part of the housing development, we are issuing I believe it's $4.3 million allocation through the Providence Housing Trust. The only other project that we've committed to is the One Neighborhood Builders project on Bedoin Street. They are building 8 units of affordable housing. We're funding that partially through our federal entitlement funds and partially through the Providence Housing Trust. So those are the 3 projects that are active right now. We do have a call out for projects. So the way we're thinking about the Providence Housing Trust is a rolling and revolving fund. So rolling meaning that there's no hard deadline. We're just seeking projects and folks can submit projects to us whenever those projects are ready, and we bring them before our board at the Providence Redevelopment Agency. I forgot to note that the Providence Housing Trust is administered by the Providence Redevelopment Agency. And then when I say revolving, referring to the fact that the funds are intended to be very low interest loans, either in the form of construction financing, so providing very low interest construction lending, which brings down the overall cost of the project and can help, launch a project. And then we are doing project financing, low interest loans for sort of debt into the project as well. And so with a combination of construction lending and project lending, those funds will be revolving back into the trust so that we can quickly get them back out. And that's the intent, is to get gap financing out to get projects underway a lot sooner. So we're hoping that in the next coming months, we will be able to get more projects, cut some, or pick up the shovels, the golden shovel, the groundbreaking for a lot of these projects. We're really, really excited about it.
Okay. So Paragon Mills, you said that 5 million of the Affordable Housing Trust dollars went into that. So we just closed on that bond. How long has Paragon Mills been waiting to move forward?
So
were they waiting just for that gap financing that was made available?
No, they weren't. So we, that project has been very complicated. So they had closed on the state historic tax credits. They had to close on the federal historic tax credits, and then the 9% low income housing tax credits. So it's been a process. We have not been holding up the project. So
no, I knew that Paragon had quite a bit of subsidies in it, and then when I saw that Affordable Housing Fund dollars were used, I was wondering if that was the straw that made the transaction happen.
Well, honestly, that's a good point. I mean, they came to us early in the process to say that they would need some gap financing to make the project go, for sure. And we were well enough along in the bond conversation that we were confident that we would have those bond proceeds to invest.
And when you say we now, you're wearing the PRA hat, is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
Yes. Like I said, this fund is administered through the Providence Redevelopment Agency. But I just wanted to note one thing, which is, these projects are very multifaceted. And so a number of the people on our team touch these projects in a variety of different ways. Bob's team is involved on the regulatory side. Our historic preservation planner is involved on sort of the building side. So there's a number of different ways that we get involved in these projects. So officially the financing mechanism comes through the PRA. Thanks for letting me just go on and on about that for a minute.
It's very exciting. As a matter of fact, it's so exciting, I want to go on about it a little bit.
Okay,
So, as you know, and I basically would like to share a little background for my committee, as well as everyone who is listening. So that the Affordable Housing Trust was created some time ago, likely back in 2006 or 08. Recently was amended to be funded by 10% from all of the TSA money that was coming in. 10% of all of the TSAs was deposited into the Affordable Housing Trust. And then we recognized as a council body that that wasn't enough power. The council wanted to provide a dedicated source of funds to create affordable housing. And what we heard time and time again from our community groups was that gap financing was critical to make a transaction happen. You stated how complicated Paragon is. Other deals are as well. They have many pots of restricted dollars, and the concept was to create a gap funding source to affirm the council's goal of creating as much affordable housing as we could in the city. That's how we embarked on the road of creating affordable housing bond which is the $24 million bond that you referenced in your testimony. That bond was passed by the council. It was created by the council. It was an initiative of the council. One of our stipulations was that we wanted to make sure that there was appropriate procedures in place to make sure that those funds were not used loosely, that there were controls in place, that they were truly needed to achieve our highest percent of affordable housing, and they were precious dollars, so to speak. So the council capitalized the account. The council created that affordable housing trust. And, you know, we've heard the mayor talk about his initiative relative to affordable housing. It was actually a council initiative. So I wanted to be clear in that presentation tonight. And I also wanted to say, we haven't gotten a report. The council's, I looked back as to when the trust fund was created, and in all of the amendments along the way, we've asked for reporting as to how the funds would be utilized. And I think it's more paramount than ever, particularly since we've capitalized it. It was, again, a council act to capitalize it. The $24 million bond we just passed a couple of months ago, and it's already on the street in 3 projects, well, 2 projects and one kind of in the wings. We want to understand how these funds are being used. What is the protocols, what the rates are. You talked about, you know, low rates.
Yeah.
And we want, I guess first and foremost, I want to communicate tonight that it was always a council priority that everyone was treated equal, that this isn't a fund to be used or dipped into if there's development projects that are, you know, premier projects or chosen projects of the administration, that these funds are spread across the city equally to serve all development projects that yield affordable housing in the best way possible. And we always anticipated that it would be open and you know, readily reported upon. So the council, I know I am going to be working on making sure that going forward, we have appropriate reporting, we understand where those dollars are being used, and we understand, and I recognize that these decisions are made in the PRA, and you in your role as the executive director, and also in your dual responsibility as director of planning, you know, you can obviously bring these 2 minds together as you're developing projects, but the council wants to understand how the funds are being used for the intention that we created the funding for. So we're going to be looking at that, and we'll hope that you will work with us on coming up with some mechanisms to make sure that everyone is, you know, comes to the table, and that one big developer doesn't overwhelm a smaller developer who has an equally noble project but isn't as sophisticated or aware of the funding source. So that's a priority for the council, particularly because this is a council initiative. And all tonight I heard you talk about we. It certainly is we. It's a council initiative, and the administration is you know, a part of making sure that it's distributed equally and fairly. I've said enough.
Can I just add one thing, because I did forget?
Sure you can. Sure you can.
Councilman Taylor and Councilwoman Harris.
I can't hear you. You're breaking up. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to acknowledge, in the spirit of what you were just saying, that Councilman Taylor and Councilwoman Harris sit on the PRA and have been fantastic and have really helped to lead this effort and spearhead this effort around the bond, and as well as the rules and regs associated with it. So I just wanted to acknowledge those 2 council members on our board that have been really fantastic to work with.
We recognize that. We appreciate that. The procedures and protocols were approved by the ordinance committee. So it was a broader spectrum that the PRA utilizes to administer these dollars. Okay, I'm good on that. I wanted to talk about what else do you have going on? How about PVD streets? Let's talk about that. that's in line with the engagement. What's going on with that?
Yeah, so I believe you might be referring to the open streets work from last year. Is that what you're referring to?
I'm referring to the Great Streets Initiative.
Oh, okay.
There's something else. Is there an Open Streets Initiative?
I was just thinking there was, as you'll recall, this time last year, we were trying to figure out how to open up the public right-of-way during the pandemic. And so I didn't know if that's what you were referring to.
Talk about that. Go ahead. I forgot about that. So Open Streets was all about how to, you were closing off streets so that people could walk around outside in the open air. Talk about that. Go ahead.
I don't need to spend much time on it because that program has really pivoted to what we have recently really focused on, which is commerce and how to allow small businesses to take advantage of having outdoor facilities for dining. And, as you know, we have a new permit process. We're hoping to make it a lot easier for our small businesses to take advantage of basically conducting commerce outside, which everyone wants to do right now. And so we've kind of pivoted the open streets to really this idea of sort of open commerce and how to support that. And that's being led through licensing in our Department of Art, Culture, and Tourism. But I'm happy to talk about Great Streets as well.
Well, thank you for your Open Streets initiative. I was personally a proponent of getting our parks open so that people could get some fresh air in that terrible year that we just came out of. So I think we're all on the same page in that regard. But please tell me what's going on with Great Streets. I know that you know that I'm intimately familiar with some of the challenges.
Absolutely. So like I said, we're continuing to work on several of the Great Street segments citywide. So the kind of biggest one that is in our pipeline right now is the Broad Street segment, which we had been referring to as City Walk. Many of you will know that segment as City Walk. We are going to be under construction for that project in late summer of this year, which is really exciting for us. And then we are launching several segments in and around the downtown area. So the one that I mentioned earlier was South Water Street. We actually have a series of community workshops coming up over the next few weeks. I know that
Excuse me, Director, I don't mean to interrupt you, but for the benefit of the committee and everyone else who's listening, can you talk about the Great Streets, what it is, what the initiative is all about? Yeah, give us, I'm sorry, it's getting late and you've been wonderful. Just give us a little primer.
Yes, thank you for the reminder. So pulling the lens back a little bit, we about 18 months ago had launched a citywide plan called Great Streets, which is really a vision of how we can rebalance the public right-of-way in our city. So I won't go into my speech, but quickly, about 15% of our land area is taken up through our roadways. And so it's actually, we have more acreage of streets than we have parks. We have about 1,400 acres of parks in the city, about 1,500 acres of public right-of-way on our streets. So when you think about that, that's one of our largest public assets. And really to date, it's been reserved for a single mode of transportation, which is cars. And there are neighborhoods in Providence, like Olneyville and many others, where about 25% of our residents own a car. So it's really a mismatch between how much space of our public realm we're giving over to the car and how many of our residents just aren't car owners. And so Great Streets is really thinking about how to rebalance that a little bit and make all modes of transportation safe for all users. And that includes folks that are biking, folks that are walking. And we know that there's a lot more sort of mobility choices like scooters, and we're going to be bringing bike share back. So we really wanted to think about how do we rebalance that space, and so that it's more equitable for all users and safer for all users. So we have a vision of building 70 miles of segregated, protected, what we're sort of referring to as slow lanes for all of those other modes. And that's part of what we're talking about when we say the Urban Trail Network. Our goal is to really have all of these segments kind of fit together in a network that's very easy to navigate and very legible for residents and visitors alike. So that's kind of the big picture. And then when I've referred to Broad Street, that's one of the segments that will be under construction this summer. South Water Street, we just issued the construction bid on that. We will be under construction on that segment in June of this year, and many other segments sort of throughout the downtown area and others. And like I said, sorry to go on, but
please do.
I believe that Alex Ellis on our team, who is sort of our resident Great Streets expert, sent out a communication to many of you about upcoming community engagement sessions. We have 3 sessions coming up in the coming weeks that will go into the details of each of those segments, what you can expect to see, what the construction schedule is going to be, and sort of walking through folks of what they can expect to see and when.
So, is the website up to date? The Great Streets website up to date?
I am not sure. That's my honest answer.
Who manages that for you?
So as we had just talked about earlier, our communications director unfortunately took another job, but part of her duties were sort of to look at the department website and the information that we're putting out on social media, et cetera. So there very well could be a lag between the information on the website and what is the current condition, but I honestly just don't want to give you wrong information about that.
That's okay. So I see that there's some community engagement, because you've expressed that community engagement is really important for this project.
Right.
June 17 is actually there's a June 10, 2021 and a June 17, so someone is updating it, so to answer you. What I don't see is there's no prior meetings listed on this prior to February 4th of 2020. There's no community meetings listed. And I do think that if community engagement is important and that you're meeting with community groups, that we should make sure that we document who we've met with. Okay. Because it's a black hole there. And I can only speak to my own ward. I know what's going on in my own ward, and I know, there were meetings about Mount Pleasant Avenue on January 28th. It's not listed on here. It seems odd. And then it also seems odd that the creation of a new urban trail segment along Mount Pleasant Avenue is in design. From what I've been told, when your department does answer my telephone calls, that the design has been finalized and approved by the mayor, and there's no change allowed in that plan. Is that correct? So I'm wondering why it says in design.
So I would assume that it says in design until it says in construction. And as you know, I'm sure that I just spoke with DOT today. The project is in DOT's hands, and they're trying to decide how to move forward. I believe they're trying to move forward with the ability to put a construction bid, at least for the safety elements of the project, out this summer. And
I'm unaware of that. You said you thought that I was aware. No one has communicated to me what is going on relative to construction on Mount Pleasant Avenue.
Well, I felt similarly, and that's why I reached out to DOT and I said, do you need any additional information from the city at this point? And they said they did not need any information from us and that they would be in touch. So I'm waiting to hear from DOT what information they need from us. My understanding is that an MOU or a CNM agreement has to be executed before they would be putting that project out to bid. And so
is your process to initiate that MOU to finalize community engagement?
So we haven't heard anything back from DOT on the MOU or the CNM agreement at this point. So I don't have any information on the status.
Okay. So that's a black hole, or you're not sharing everything with us. But I guess what my concern here is when I'm looking at the community engagement referenced on the website, it says throughout the planning process for Great Streets, the Department of Planning and Development created a public engagement strategy that prioritized the voice of community members who utilize our streets in their everyday lives. I think that's wonderful. I support that wholeheartedly. I think the entire council body supports that. However, that's not in practice what's happening. The community spoke what they wanted on Mount Pleasant Avenue, and it was wholeheartedly rejected, and the administration moved forward with putting a plan together that they approved. And I have not been updated accordingly on what's going on. So when my neighbors ask me what's happening, I really don't know what's going on. So I think it's, you have a duty and an obligation to communicate how these projects are developing. I don't, I see in design construction anticipated. I see in design, I see starting on many of these projects that are listed here. You need to communicate with the council. You need to get back to the community that we're engaged. And I still find it troubling that I have a petition of over 1,000 people that do not want a 2-lane bike lane on Mount Pleasant Avenue, and they are being completely ignored in the process. That's not engaging a community. They've never said that they don't want a bike lane. They're just rejecting a 2-lane bike lane because parking is a priority, particularly for the businesses at the end of Mount Pleasant Avenue. So I'd like you to focus on making sure that we are actually engaging the community and not only hearing what we want to hear, but making sure that we listen and that we serve the community accordingly. And it's troubling to me that, again, on the Great Streets website, it's purported here that the initiative collected 180. There were 275 comments were collected from 180 attendees at the Great Streets engagement meetings. I don't think that's sufficient engagement. At least that's not. A council member has a monthly meeting, and I can fill a room with more than 180 people. So we need to do a better job. And I know, Bonnie, I've heard you speak about community engagement and how important it is. We need to find a way that we build it into everything that we do. We're spending precious tax dollars on a lot of infrastructure changes, and we have just a lot of disgruntled folks. And I think it's a function, and I think Councilwoman Anthony asked about, your communications person and how we were getting messages out. And I think we're relying on social media too much. Our messaging needs to get drilled down into the community through, through our churches, through our schools, through community centers, and engage everyone in the discussion, because it appears to me that we're only engaging a certain segment that is predisposed to certain projects. And that's an important component of what you do. And I'm just stressing to you to please make sure that you try to expand your engagement on these projects and all the projects that you touch.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to comment on that.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And like I said, we're always challenging ourselves how we can do better. And we're open to partnering with you all in any ways that you find that you're being successful at reaching your constituents that maybe we could either partner with or learn from. So we're always open to that.
Okay, and also the council people all have community meetings, and if you've got something happening in their community, they would welcome the opportunity to have you present what's going on and get direct feedback. And I've got a monthly community meeting. I would love to welcome you. I'm inviting you right now to provide an update on Mount Pleasant Avenue to my community at my next community meeting. that would be wonderful if you would agree to do that. Would you agree to do that?
If I have an update from DOT at that time, I'd be happy to share it.
I would like you to give an update on what the city has agreed to. You've signed off on a plan for Mount Pleasant Avenue. That's what DOT has told me. So I'd love you to come and make that presentation. I've got another question here on, I forgot to ask you when we were talking about boarded houses.
Oh, sure.
Do you have, can you plot them out? Like, do you have the ability to have like a map, provide a map for us? I think each council person is very interested in knowing what houses are boarded out, where are they, what's their location. Do you think you could provide that to the auditor for us, and we'll get it out?
To make sure that I understand the request, do you mean that list of the 245, or do you mean properties that we've actively gone out and leaned the property and boarded it ourselves?
I want it all.
Oh, okay.
So both. I was only asking for the 245, but if you've leaned the property and boarded it, we should know that too. So thank you.
Yeah, in some cases, those lists, those lists probably overlap, but I just wanted to make sure that you were looking for both of those. Okay.
You can code it accordingly, but we want to understand what's out there that's boarded, excuse me, and if it's boarded up, what role we can play in helping you develop programs and supporting you in developing programs to get those properties back to productive use. That's pretty much where we're at there. Councilman Goncalves, I see you have your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to echo all of your remarks, which you articulated so beautifully. I think it has to be beyond just neighborhood associations as well. Folks who are involved in some of these zoning matters, we have to broaden the discussions to reach people where they are. And in many cases, it does feel very top down from the city administration. We also have a monthly community meeting. Bonnie, we would love to have you on. And of course, I think anything that we can do to enhance transparency and communication between the city administration and the community is ultimately going to help ease some of the public confusion and frustration around some of the zoning matters that happen in our city. And we would certainly welcome that. So I just want to thank Bonnie for all of her work and her department as well for all that they do, and hope that we can continue the great communication moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you for your input. That was great. Anyone else have any comments, concerns, questions, thoughts? Madam Auditor, are you satisfied?
Thank you.
Wow, you did a good job then if she's satisfied. I would be remiss if I didn't recognize my dear friend Bobby. I miss you in ordinance. We always had great fun, and your service to the city is absolutely wonderful. So thank you for all you do. I'm sorry I didn't have to grill you tonight. I'm going to have to think of something to come back with. But I thank you for being here.
You know how to reach me, Madam Chair.
I do, but I was concerned about your new nickname. I'm going to tease you on that one that emerged. That was completely new to me. Director Nickerson, thank you very much. Thank you for all you do for the city. We greatly appreciate it. I do want you to focus on engagement, and as Councilman Goncalves said, it's really important to us, and it's not drilling down, and it's troubling, because I think as council people, we are all so sensitive to when we want to do something or when we're asked to do something, getting buy-in and getting people. Not everybody is going to be 100% happy with what happens, because you try to get a consensus, generally speaking, but everybody needs to have a seat at the table, and everyone needs to be heard. And that's what the council fights for and will always fight for. So we're asking you to slow down and focus on what is important to the council. And some of these initiatives, I just would like you to look at your engagement initiatives and make that a priority for us. And, we certainly want to be your partner in that communication mechanism. We work very hard to keep those communication lines open. So I heard Councilman Goncalves invited you to his community meeting. I'm going to hold you to your participation in mine. My next one, I've already scheduled the upcoming one, but I'd love to have you join us, and you would certainly be welcome. So that's it, folks.
Thank you.
I
appreciate it.
That's all I have, and the clerks are looking at me saying, don't forget. So I would like to waive the readings of budget items 1 through 4 and ask for a motion to continue. Motion made by Councilwoman Castillo, seconded by Councilwoman Anthony. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion passes. We're adjourned. Thank you all. Good evening. Oh, motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn by Councilwoman Castillo. By Councilwoman Anthony. All in favor? Aye. We're adjourned. Now we can say goodbye. Thank you all. See, you got to